What is up, everyone? My name's Henry.
And my name is Paul.
And welcome to the Lewisham Youth Brain Health Radio Show. We're here to chat about all things brain health and dementia. And hopefully, we're going to do that in a way that actually makes sense, especially for young people.
We'll be breaking it down. What is brain health? What dementia means? And how we can keep our brains healthy.
We care about this because we are living longer. We care about this because we're living longer every single day, and it's impacting more and more people's lives. And we think young people should understand this too.
And those only two of us talking, we are not doing the show alone. We are part of a group called Lewisham Youth Brain Health Champions. To shout out to Bonnie, Harley, Miguel, Jermaine, and Jess.
So, without further ado, let's jump right into today's episode, alright?
We've got two brilliant guests in the studio today for our conversation.
Say hello to none other than Jackie Parks. She is a dementia researcher and professor of applied mental health at the Dementia Innovation Center at the University of Northampton. So basically, she really knows her stuff when it comes to dementia.
And a big welcome to Pete Middleton. He's living it with dementia and is super inspiring. We first met him during our training to become Youth Brain Health Champions.
It is so great to have you two in the studio with us. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Henry. Hi, Paul. It's really lovely to be with you this evening.
Really great to have you guys in the studio with us. How are you doing, Pete?
Yeah, well, hi both. I'm just really excited to be here with you this evening.
How's your day been so far?
Well, this is the highlight. So, yeah, but it's been pretty busy. Yeah, I've had 3 or 4 meetings today.
Oh, good to know. Good to know you're enjoying it so far.
I'm already intrigued with your meetings. Anyway, I hope the audience stay tuned. We'll hear more from them later, but first, it's time for a quiz. Audience, you can play along if you want.
All right, it's quiz time. Let's see how much you really know about dementia, all right?
We've got our guest here. So, Heather, what's your name? And could you give us some background information around yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kitty, and I work here at Radio Lewisham. So very excited to be joining you guys today. I don't know anything about brain health, but I'm excited to learn.
Hello there, Kitty. Hope you can learn as much as we do today. So, here's how the quiz is going to work. We will ask 3 questions about dementia. If you do know the answer to your question, then say it. But if you don't, you can ask us for a multiple choice option, or you can get help from our experts, Jackie or Pete. Jackie and Pete will let us know if the answer is right.
Does that sound good to everyone?
That sounds great to me.
Works for me.
All right. First question, what is dementia?
Oh, wow. It's one of those questions that sounds like it's easy until you think about it, and then it's really, really hard. What is dementia? In a simple answer, I think dementia is a condition that causes you to lose your memory.
What you think?
But I don't know much else about it, really. I guess it's a brain health condition, but I only know that because you guys are doing a brain health show. That's a term I'd never heard before. Yeah, I think I need some expertise on this one, please.
Right, Jackie or Pete, you want to have a word?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to have a word. Pete, do you want to jump in first, though?
Oh, well, it's very kind of you, Jackie. If I might just say, dementia is the single word that embraces a whole lot of different conditions. And we should use that word dementia with a little carefully, because I think at the moment there are well over 100 different types of brain disease that fall under that umbrella.
Yeah, I think it's really, just to come in there, it's really important not to assume that everybody with dementia loses their memory. For some people, their first symptoms are perhaps a change in their personality or their behaviour, or they can't find the right word to use, or they might have difficulty with balance. Excuse me. So I think it's really, really important that we don't jump to the conclusion that dementia is always about memory.
Well said from both Jackie and Pete. Thank you for both your responses, and well done, Kitty. That was the correct answer, but there are other things to elaborate on. But I wouldn't say that yet. I'll say that till the end. On to question 2. What is the most common type of dementia?
Oh, the most common type of dementia. I'm guessing it's the one I've heard of, which is Alzheimer's, if that is a type of dementia. Because I don't know any other types. I didn't know there were any other types. So, yeah, this is interesting.
I would be inclined to say that you are indeed correct.
Great.
Right. In terms of the other types of dementia, is there any more you'd want to mention, Jackie?
Yeah, so really well done there, Kitty. Everybody thinks that Alzheimer's is dementia and dementia is Alzheimer's, and it's not actually true. So Alzheimer is the most common. It's around 70% of all dementias, but there are there's vascular, it's about 17%, and then there are much more rare ones like Lewy bodies, dementia with Lewy bodies, and then frontotemporal lobe dementia. So some great words there that I have to practice saying, but yeah, they're the four more well-known ones.
All right. Thank you so much. You're doing really good so far, Kay.
Thanks.
Final question. What makes someone more likely to be diagnosed with dementia?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Makes someone like sort of statistically more likely to be diagnosed.
Uh-huh.
I'm guessing that age is a big factor, because I can't imagine that if you're like 30, it's something that gets noticed very often. So maybe sort of being 70 plus helps. And maybe exhibiting those signs that are the ones that I thought were basically dementia, which is memory loss, like just forgetting things. I can't really think of anything else.
What would you think about that, Pete?
I think that's a really good answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly age is a big thing. But I think many people nowadays are diagnosed through an earlier misdiagnosis.
Mm.
You know, the initial symptoms are often picked up and labelled as anxiety or depression. And it's only when later that people are referred to a memory clinic and they have a scan and other tests that that actually a diagnosis of dementia is given.
Wow, that's so interesting. Why does it show up as anxiety or depression? Like why are they kind of? Why
I think especially in younger people, many general practitioners at least are not expecting dementia.
Mm.
Because the stereotype of someone with dementia is not a younger person.
That's really interesting.
Thank you, Pete, for that great contribution. And well done, Kitty, for those great guesses. We'll now dig deep into these questions with Jackie, one of our brilliant dementia experts.
All right, Jackie, it's so great to have you in the studio with us. Do you mind just introducing yourself a bit to the listeners and just, telling us what actually gave you the passion to start with your profession?
Yeah, so it's really lovely to meet and work with you, Henry and Paul, and also to meet all you listeners in Lewisham. So I started life as a mental health nurse and worked for a long time in mental health, and then I had a really great opportunity to develop a research centre, and one of my areas of work was dementia, and I'd done dementia as a student nurse. And when I was a student nurse, I nursed somebody with dementia who was 36 years old. So it absolutely shocked me that somebody could get dementia at such a young age. So when I got a chance to do some research into dementia, I started to look at people who got dementia under the age of 65. So that's what I really do a lot of research in is young onset dementia, and was one of the people who designed and led a UK-wide study on younger onset dementia. But I also, as I've done more and more research, I work with people in the community, supporting their families and supporting them with early interventions to try and delay the onset of dementia. And I have a fantastic career, and I have also had a fantastic to be able to use my nursing skills and continue to work with people in the community and support them and their families. It's a real privilege. So that's what I do. That's why I do what I do.
That's a really inspiring story, Jackie, and we are honoured and so happy that you're here, because dementia can be really hard to understand, especially for young people who don't really comprehend or actually understand or deep, just for the clinical language there, deep the kind of effects of dementia. And I'm hoping that you could enlighten us on what dementia actually is and kind of simplify it for us to make it more understandable for the audience.
And also, I really do want to say a huge thank you for your help with the quiz. But I guess it's time to actually break down dementia and brain health for our listeners. And how would you explain dementia in a simple way, Jackie?
Yeah, so dementia, I think for a lot of people is quite a scary thing. It's a disease, so it's a disease like any other disease, and it has lots of different causes potentially. So for some people, it's little mini bleeds in the brain and mini what we call TIAs or transient ischemic attacks, but they're like little mini strokes. And it damages the seepage, damages the brain cells, and they're lost in different areas of the brain. So that's one type of dementia, that's vascular. For other people, it's a buildup of a particular protein that damages those brain cells. And for most people, unfortunately, there isn't a cure. We're doing some really wonderful work at the moment with science and drugs. We're learning an awful lot about drugs and being able to identify people who are, may get dementia later in life and then getting them in drug trials. So we're doing a lot of really positive work at the moment with dementia, but basically dementia is loss of brain cells. And there's lots of reasons why that can happen.
That seems extremely interesting, and I like the way where you broke down simpler terms into more complex terms, explaining different types of dementia, how you can kind of see the symptoms of it, why they even have dementia, some of them in some cases, and we really appreciate that. Back in the quiz, we also asked about the different types of dementia, and it would be great to let our listeners know about the different types of dementia and kind of explain what Alzheimer's disease is, since this is one of the most common types of dementia, and also possibly explain the other diseases, if there are symptoms or repercussions, or kind of it's kind of difficult to explain, but kind of like diseases that also link with dementia, like Parkinson's and Huntington's disease.
Yeah, so you've got Alzheimer's type, and I think I mentioned that's the most common. It's around 70%. It's a build-up of a particular protein in the brain called amyloid, and that builds up over time, and it produces what we call these plaques and tangles, so these little knots and build up protein, and it damages the brain cells around, and in an older person that can be anything from an average of 12 years for that to happen. A lot of people think that that process starts a lot earlier than 65, so in your 40s and 50s. So and we also think that we used to think it ran in families, but the link to families is maybe not as strong as we once felt. So that's the most common, and the vast majority of people over 65, that will be the type that they've got. People who are under 65 can get Alzheimer's type, and often it happens in a different way in a younger person. Again, we don't quite know why, but there are some theories around that. So that's the most well-known one. Vascular, we've seen some positive results with vascular dementia, because we've seen from studies, from research, that if you look after your heart, the side effect is that there's less incidence of vascular dementia in those people. So we know that with a really good lifestyle and not drinking too heavily and not vaping too young, not damaging our brain cells too early, we know that we can really look after our brain health, and our positive mental health. So there are ways that we can maybe reduce the risk of vascular dementia much more easily, perhaps. And then you've got Lewy bodies or dementia with Lewy bodies. That's another protein that can build up. It's around 10%, so not as common as Alzheimer. But it has a really unique feature or a unique bit that says those people see things, have hallucinations that aren't there. And they know they're having hallucinations, but they have them anyway. So it's quite particular. And that is linked, you're right, Henry, that's linked to Parkinson's. We're exploring that. We're not quite there with all the answers to that, but we know there are strong links, perhaps. And then you've got frontotemporal lobe dementia, or we often call that FTD. That's more common in people under 65 and more common in men under 65, and that's with your frontal part of the brain. And the first symptoms in that dementia are personality changes or behaviour changes. Those people don't have problems necessarily with memory straight away. So different dementias start with different symptoms and not always down to memory, as you've said. And they're the top 4 big ones. There are others that are much rarer. And you mentioned Huntington's there. That is much more genetic and does run in families. And people who have Huntington's, they're usually showing symptoms around the age of 30. And they're often advised to have counselling about whether they have children or not. So a lot of work going on in Huntington's.
If you don't mind, I don't know, I find something really crazy. It's just like there's so many variations of one particular disease. And I don't know for everyone else, but as a young person, it's kind of scary, especially when, the actions we take part in right now is so heavily linked to whether or not we end up developing dementia or one of the many types of dementia for that matter. But thank you so much for your explanation. It was really engaging, to be honest. So what would you think for young people in that matter? What do you think is the most common cause of dementia? Or what do you think is just something people normally do and don't think much of, but is something that really make them likely to be diagnosed with dementia?
I think the thing to really concentrate on as a young person is how you look after we talk about the health of the brain, and your brain is it's not an organ, it's not a muscle, it's not a muscle, it's an organ, but it still needs the same, it needs oxygen, it needs nutrients, it needs looking after. So, we have to think about things like sports and head injuries. We have to think about, good diet. We have to think about, not abusing it too much with alcohol or drugs. We have to think about sleep and social connectivity. So all the things we need to think about as a young person to sort of look after our bodies is really important that we think about that when we're a young person, because our brain's still developing and it's very sensitive to damage and abuse. So nobody's against having a good time, but we have to think about how we protect the healthiness of our brains.
Okay, that is extremely interesting. That will help me with other stuff because I'm actually really interested in learning about the brain and learning that there's specific types of lifestyle that can deeply affect the brain, even though it might not seem as significant as it looks like, is really eye-opening to not only me, not only Henry, but to the wider audience as in general. And I just found it really interesting. How would these causes increase the risk of us developing dementia? And what signs should we look out for? Especially when, if there's people living with dementia, what can we look out for to know if they have dementia or not?
All right. So, in terms of what to look out for people with dementia, the early signs, it's often the family or mainly work colleagues that tend to spot it because they see the person's behaviour changing. Perhaps they're acting a little out of character. Maybe they're looking a bit confused or lost at times because they've changed the routine slightly, or they're having a little bit of problem with their short-term memory. I think Pete could probably give us some examples here. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. You don't see it in yourself. Other people see it in you. And the hard bit for them is to be honest enough to challenge you on it and say, hey, Pete, you've changed a bit. Have you thought about going to see the doctor? Because we can see things in you that have changed. So I think everybody out there needs to be aware and look at other people and just gently suggest to them, if you can see changes in their behaviour, just gently suggest to them to get it checked out. It may not be a dementia, could be anything, couldn't it? Could be a vitamin deficiency, anything. But it's worth getting people to just check it out.
Yeah, I really think it just all comes down to, looking out for one another and social responsibility, really. Yeah. And especially when, to be honest, I don't think you can fully trust in the healthcare system. Like you said a while back, P, you're saying about people being falsely diagnosed and they end up not even realizing that they do have dementia, and they are forced to live without actually knowing that they do have it. I think it's really, really, really unfortunate that some people have to go through that. And truly, I just think it's something that it comes down to everyone as individuals to just look out for each other, look out for signs, like Jackie said, in one another, to, help with early responses to any signs. But before we move on to the next part of the episode, there is one question we would really want you guys' opinion on. Do you see brain health as a problem to young people?
Well, from my point of view, I don't know what Pete thinks, but I don't think for a long time we gave the same attention to looking after our brains as perhaps we did the other parts of our bodies. I think we all thought it was just there and doing its thing. And I think we know a lot more now about how the brain works and how we do need to look after it. And I think we've seen a lot, particularly through sports, head injuries and heading the ball and rugby. We've seen a lot more, if we damage our brains or abuse our brains through, different smoking, drugs, that kind of thing. I think we know a lot more now, and science is always showing us more. What do you think, Pete?
I see a lot of good things going on and being done by young people, more, I guess, than when I was a young person myself, because we know more now. And people understand that if they want to live good lives and long lives, then just taking care of yourself a little bit will make a big difference further down the line. It's insurance, isn't it?
Yeah. And I find that really interesting. As a sports addict and academic addict as well, I definitely feel the repercussions of brain health, and I feel like I definitely have been neglecting my brain health, and I will be very honest, that has affected me in some ways, but I am moving to improve my brain health, as obviously, not obviously, but I'm really interested in the brain. And I would really like to learn more about the brain, so I want to continue helping my brain so I can help other people's brains, if that makes any sense. I just find the brain really interesting. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Pete, for your responses. And those were really, really, really helpful, not only to me and Henry, but for our audience, which probably might not understand a lot about dementia, but also could probably heed this conversation and actually enlighten themselves on dementia and probably do some research into dementia and brain health. Again, thank you, Jackie, for the introduction to dementia. We're sure a lot of young people from here, from our audience, from me and Henry, from our youth brain health champions, that this information, hearing this for the first time, would actually really help them. And I thank you so much for making this clear to us.
Thank you so much. And now it's time to actually get to know you better, Pete. So, want to introduce yourself a little bit and like you just, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, hi everybody. Yeah, I'm nobody special. I'm just Pete Middleton. I'm just one of the 500,000 people with dementia. I'm one of the people with Alzheimer's disease. I was diagnosed with dementia when I was still of working age, so I'm labelled as someone living with young onset dementia. Bit of a shock for me, and that was nearly 7 years ago now, 6.5 years ago, and that was a life changer. I had to retire early from work. I couldn't. My employer couldn't find a job for me, and my whole life changed. You plan for your retirement, don't you? Well, I guess you don't yet, but you plan for it because you're a long time retired. I had no chance to plan for my retirement, so it was sort of thrust upon me, and I thought, well, am I going to make myself busy now? I've got this diagnosis of a life-limiting illness, but hey, I'm still me. I've still got a lot to offer. So I started volunteering. Well, I've always volunteered. All my life I've volunteered. And I honestly, I have looked after my brain health. So, although that's definitely a part of and a cause and a mitigating factor in many dementias, but it's not the be-all and end-all. I think some of it is just the luck of the draw. I don't know whether it runs in my family. My father died young, so I couldn't tell you that. But, there is a hereditary factor. There's many things. But you've got to think, how can I still make myself useful? I may not be able to remember where I left my glasses on my mobile phone, but I can still write apps for mobile phones because that was something that I used to do as part of my life, and I can still do that. I still drive 6.5 years down the road. But I know that I'm coming across a lot of things now that I can't do. But I keep my brain as active as I can. And good people like Jackie here give me lots of work to do to challenge me and keep me busy. And so I'm living well with my dementia.
Right. So thank you so much for that sweet little introduction, P. I'll be so honest. That little short segment about yourself is one of the most inspiring things I've ever heard. I don't know, because you just make it seem like you don't even try to view dementia as a setback at all. You just see it as one of those things where you should actually embrace in your life. I really love that. So furthermore, I just really appreciate you joining us on the radio show today. You've actually made such an impact during our training session, and you've helped me and everyone here understand what it's like to live with dementia.
Echoing what Henry said, that segment was really touching, and hopefully for the audience it kind of shows them that they shouldn't see dementia as a setback and that they should continue striving for what they stand for and wouldn't let a disease hold them back. And now when we were doing a little bit of research on this episode, we obviously found you, and we found out that you wrote a blog called Living Well with Dementia, and you starred on a Channel 4 documentary on your dementia, and was a volunteer of Alzheimer Society, a charity that supports people living with dementia and their careers. And I find that personally extremely inspiring. As I said, with dementia, you didn't see that as a setback, and also what Henry said, you didn't see dementia as a setback, and instead you used your disease to help other people with that same disease and try to aid them with their lives. So I would just say thank you so much for aiding the community, for aiding people with dementia and making them see a positive light instead of seeing that doom of darkness where dementia just traps them and shuts them off. So I thank you a lot.
So you seem like a very educated person on this topic. Well, what would you say makes you have this very sincere passion about sharing your story, Pete, and what makes you really want to share awareness about dementia in general?
Well, there are two reasons, and one of them is selfish. And the selfish reason is because, hey, keeping busy like this is good for my brain health, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wish I could be in your recording studio with you because I love tech, and it keeps me sharp because I'm learning things and I'm reinforcing all the things that I already know. That's good. But the second thing is, since my diagnosis, I've met a lot of people living with dementia. And when I meet people who are newly diagnosed, I see them give up. And I see them feel as if they have no more worth and no self-respect and no self-esteem. It's been taken away from them. There's no cure for many dementias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you're diagnosed? Medics don't know what to do with you. They just shunt you into the side and say, okay, you've got a life-limiting illness. Cheerio, there's nothing we can do. Well, hang on, there's lots you can do. There's lots you can do to live a good life. You can use your creativity. You can use your life skills. If you see your grandparents or someone like that get a diagnosis of dementia, don't let them give up. You tell them about all the things that they can still do that give them worth. Because by doing that and giving them challenging things to do and giving them work to do, you're going to prolong their lives. You're going to make their lives more fulfilled and more rich. And there's nothing better than that. I've got such a rich life now. I was lucky enough to be named a coronation champion by the King and Queen when they, and get to go to Windsor Park and all those just terrific things. And boy, there's nothing special about me. But dementia enabled me to do that. They just recognised that I was doing stuff for dementia. But, what else am I going to do? Sit and twiddle my thumbs? I mean, I do enjoy computer gaming still, I must admit. But it's all part of my brain health. But, there are so many things that need doing out there. And not everybody with dementia still has a voice. I do. So listen, it's my duty to stand up and shout out for the things that I see that need to be done in the world of dementia, especially for those people who can't do it for themselves anymore.
That seems really interesting, and I hope your audience take heed to that. Our audience take heed to that. And thinking about tech, we're talking about young people. Obviously, young people like tech, and so do you. So, what do you think about young people? What do you think young people should know about dementia? As dementia is not really commonly known around young people, and some young people don't even know about dementia, probably don't even know the words. So what do you think young people should know about dementia?
I would say that knowledge is power. Give yourself a little bit of knowledge. You don't need to be an expert in dementia, but just do a little bit of research, figure out what it is. Ask Grok. Well, maybe not Grok, but, ask around and you'll find out enough of what you need to know. Don't be frightened either. We're making big advances. And look at me, I'm still happy. It's not a death sentence. And once you understand brain health, you realize that it doesn't have to be boring. The same as any keeping fit and looking after yourself doesn't have to be boring. I run comedy workshops. Hey, that's good for your brain health, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do courses on clowning. Well, because laughter's the best medicine, and that's something that we all have in common, that we know how to laugh. And laughing is such a great release and just a wonderful thing. And when working out comedy routines and poems and rapping and things like that, it's just wonderful brain health. It doesn't have to be solving difficult, intricate puzzles or anything like that. It can be doing a crossword or a jigsaw puzzle or anything, playing a musical instrument. It's all good for your brain health. And if young people just get involved in that, and most of you do, then that's all you need to do, and just sit back and worry. Don't worry about the future. Do everything you can to mitigate it now, and let it take care of itself. Enjoy your life.
I hear you, Pete. And I do believe knowledge is power, we live in like a very prominently digital age, wisdom, knowledge just gets passed around like anything nowadays. And I don't really think it hurts young people to just find out about dementia, even if you're not very interested into the body and how the brain works and blah, blah, blah. It's just one of those things that, you should just have at the back of your mind. It takes like 2 clicks to get a full-on definition on what dementia is. And yeah, for our listeners, I just really think it's one of those things that you should look into, because really I think it's one of the most underspoken about issue that we have in society, But thank you so much for your responses, Pete.
No, thank you. Could I just say, you're the right people, the good people who can challenge those myths about dementia and bust them.
Yeah.
There are too many myths out there, and you can do a great job for us by helping us to challenge and bust those myths.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like I've had my own fair share of misunderstandings about dementia. Before today, I never knew that. Rightfully, before our training session, I never knew there was like so many variations of one disease. I never knew the actual cause of dementia. I just thought it was one of those things that when you get old, you just if you're unlucky, you just get it or something like that. That was my understanding of it, and I guess I was really naive, but as time has went on since then, I just actually had a much more deeper understanding about it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. We really appreciate you for sharing your experience. And I will repeat, it was really touching and really inspiring, especially for me and Henry and for our audience. Is there anything else you want to share before we move on to the next part of the episode?
Well, just just see the person, don't see the dementia, and try not to stereotype. We all stereotype. It's the way we get through life sometimes, isn't it? But everybody's different, and everyone's dementia is different. I can speak okay. My balance isn't so good. It's more than just memory.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I could talk all night.
Thank you so much, Pete.
Thank you.
So now we've got a little segment called the Youth Voice. It's going to be the final bit of our episode. So basically, we went around Lewisham, asked a couple young people a question related to brain health and dementia, and we had a couple responses. So we went out there and we asked them a question. What does brain health mean to you? And here's the responses we got.
I think it's like how your brain functions, how you think about things, and how capable you are of understanding certain things.
Brain health means how you take care of your brain and your mental health, and how important it is to take care of yourself.
It really means how you take care of yourself in general, exercise and eating healthy, a balanced diet.
Keeping a stable mental health and being able to communicate with my family and just always being aware.
Personally, I believe brain health is the overall well-being of your brain and how you facilitate and take care of it. I think brain health to me is that how sharp you are, how capable you are of remembering things. Yeah.
Brain health is functioning healthy, able to answer questions, completing daily tasks and going about your daily life.
Brain health means to me taking care of your brain, having enough sleep, and then pretty much I'm not
I think brain health is something important that you should look after. For example, exercising, engaging your brain in activities that are good for you. For example, exercise. Yeah.
Well, I'm not totally sure, but I think brain health probably means keeping your brain working well, being able to think clearly, remembering stuff, and staying focused.
So, Jackie, what do you think about the responses we got?
Do you want to go first, Pete, or shall I?
Yes, please. I love listening to those clips. When somebody stops me on the street to ask me a really deep question like that, I don't know what I'd answer. So I think they did really well. And not one of them gave a wrong answer. I think when we put all of those answers together, we got a pretty good description of what brain health is. So well done to all of them.
Yeah, and I think for me, they were amazing. It was to come up with some of those answers was really, really good. I have to check. I have to look at my notes. But joking apart, whatever you get taught to look after your body is really, really good for your brain as well. So it is about staying active and, cutting down on the smoking and maybe cutting down on the alcohol if it's a bit, over the top at times. And, even looking at your hearing and sleeping properly, but just really taking care of your brain. We do a research program and we call it Brain Gym. And it's based on a colleague of mine in Denmark. He said it's like taking your brain to the gym, doing your Sudoku, doing your quizzes as well, and that social activity. But it's also about keeping your other body general health good as well. So, yeah, look, thank you for that. Some really, really good clips.
I agree fully with everything you said, Jackie. Unfortunately, that's going to have to be a wrap for today's episode of Lewisham Youth Brain Health Radio Show, guys.
I thank everyone so much for listening to this episode, and I thank Pete and Jackie and Kitty for being involved in this radio show.
Make sure you do not miss our next episode, all right? Bonnie and Harley will be chatting with Pete and Jackie again, right? This time, they're going to be talking more about, living with dementia and, the kind of impact it can have on someone's life.
Backing up what Henry said, you can't catch up to our episodes. You must catch up to our episodes, as we are involved with the Youth Involvement and Engagement Lab YouTube channel. So we'll be engaging with you guys talking about brain health and dementia. This show was brought to us by Lewisham Youth Brain Health Champions Program. It's been coordinated by the Youth Involvement and Engagement Lab, the Lewisham Young Advisors, and the Spin Dementia Network Plus. It's also funded by Alzheimer's Research UK Inspire Fund and has been recorded at Radio Lewisham. As I said, you guys must tune in into our next episodes, as this, in my opinion, would be extremely useful for not only your education, not only for our education, but for raising awareness with dementia. And I know that me and Henry, Jackie and Pete all believe that this, along with the other episodes, are one of the first big steps into spreading awareness with dementia and to improving people's lives.
I hear you there, Paul. Thank you all once again, and we will see you next time, all right? Peace.